saying is, when a gene is expressed, the product protein does not get the information of where it is going to get placed in from the DNA.
No, it gets it from neighboring cells.
Yes and no. Because when you say neighboring cells, the very first cells that come by through embryology, where do they know where to go and where to allocate proteins?
Well, they don't do anything like that right away because they're either totipotent or pluripotent stem cells. I don't remember which term is the correct one. But you literally just divide until you're a morula and then a blastula and then a gastrula or whatever.
It is
whatever. It's completely undifferentiated tissue.
Yes.
Only until you end up with an endoderm, mesoderm, ectoderm does the chemical signaling from like one cell to the next guide those cells in their differential development.
Which is exactly my point. The placement of specific tissues in specific locations comes through the mother having the baby inside of her.
Because it implants on the uterine wall and I don't remember which layer it is. You start to form. It's actually interesting because the embryo is just a ball, but only the cells really like attached to the uterine wall develop into you. Mm-hmm. The rest forms the placenta and the amnion and a few other things. So what exactly is your point then? So because when the cell attaches to the uterus, that guides the differentiation of the cells. Therefore,
it guides the migration of the cells.
Yeah. Therefore, what?
Therefore, genes, for example, any mutation in a gene could result in the formation of a different protein. But that protein being used and utilized and then distributed along the body doesn't come from the DNA itself, the genetic code. It is reliant purely on the embryological development of the fetus in the mother. So when any evolutionary change that results in different characteristics comes by, like for example, this is purely, I know this would technically be a straw man, but just go along with the example.
So you're saying there are no genes that control for the embryo attaching to the mother?
The embryo attaching to the mother is not genetically based.
Really? That's a claim.
No. It is.
You got anything to back it up?
The fact that ectopic pregnancies occur, they don't necessarily attach to a specific point purely because of genetic sequence, markers. They can attach anywhere, depending on where the embryo ends up. So you can have a embryo attach well, in this sense, it would be a blastocyst attaching to the abdomen, in the peritoneum, in ovaries, in the fallopian tubes. It could attach anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the fundus of the uterus.
Here's a paper from the National Institutes of Health. In this regard, gene profiling studies performed in humans have identified numerous genes involved in the transcriptional regulation of uterine receptivity and embryo implantation. So there appear to be genes that help control for the embryo attaching to the inner uterine wall. Now you could argue, yeah, but they attach to other things too. But even if that's the case, there still appears to be within the embryo genetic controls to help it attach to something, right? So, I mean, this is initiated through genes in the embryo. But like, whatever, I still don't think this is a problem for evolution in any way.
I didn't.
But just because it's the mother's body that guides the differentiation of the cells into specific tissues. So what?
My point was that if any mutation occurs in a gene, the product protein is going to be different. Hence, for example, when I know, again, this is a straw man technically, but follow the thought itself. If if a mutation causes some random person to have an extra arm inside the mother's body, the morphological change that would result in the formation of an extra arm would come through via the development in the womb itself. It wouldn't come by just because of the genetic mutation.
Yes, it absolutely would come about that. Just because it happens where it happens doesn't mean that the location is what caused it. That's insane.
So I have a question for you. If I were to immediately right now to replace all of your genetic code with that would result in you possessing the genotype that would possibly result in you having an extra arm, would you grow an extra arm?
Almost certainly not.
Exactly. Because it would necessitate the fact that it grows during castration
What
mother's
did that prove?
That any morphological changes would result in anomalies in the process of development inside the mother's womb.
Yeah. Meaning that it's gene controlled, not uterus controlled.
No.
No.
For example.
How so?
For example. Urachal fistulas. Can you tell me what gene would result in that?
A urachal fistula?
I've never even
Yes.
heard that before.
I don't know.
It happens when the allantois
Fistulas
during
are holes in
embryological.
the body, right?
Yeah. Yes. During embryological development doesn't completely obliterate, resulting in a hole through the umbilical cavity that basically causes the baby to leak urine from its belly.
Okay.
What genetic marker causes that?
It's a failure of Hox genes to like appropriately develop the tissues or whatever. The most common birth defect is a cleft palate, and that's from, if you watch like an embryo's face develop, you start off as this ghastly looking thing, and then the tissue closes together around the front of the face, and it doesn't always close all the way, so you get that cleft palate. That's not the uterus causing that to happen.
It is not. That is not what I said.
We've known about Hox genes for a very long time.
That is not what I said.
Then what did
What
you
I was saying is morphological changes from the typical buildup of a human would come by through failed processes in the womb, not necessarily because of the uterus.
Sure.
So again, the same way you wouldn't grow an extra arm just because you happen to gain the gene that might lead for you to gain an extra arm. A animal that gets a mutation or that passes along a mutation doesn't necessarily mean that mutation itself is going to cause any morphological changes, because the protein that would, like for example, again in white fibrous tissue, the collagen that is being used in that specific tissue, if that happened to change, it would still be placed upon the places where the white fibrous tissue is present, like in cartilages and etc. So the position of the protein being deposited isn't going to change, because the morphological processes that would result in this morphology would still be the same in the womb. So you can have changes in a protein structure that result in the formation of different primary sequences of proteins, but they do not produce any different morphological structures unless there's a problem in the embryological development in the womb itself.
So you're telling me that evolution is false because the only way an organism can change is for it to change as it's developing in the womb, but any of those changes will be harmful.
No, I'm not saying any of the changes are going to be.
I think that's exactly what you said. Paleo, what did I miss?
Nothing at all.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what you said.
What I was saying is, again, I'm going to try to rephrase it.
Oh boy.
Sure, go for it.
So, any gene mutation
Go on.
would result in the protein that is being produced to be deposited and being used in the same exact way as in the normal unchanged gene, because of the way that the body has developed in embryological development. But when morphological changes occur, that is purely of problems in cell development. It doesn't occur just because of the gene that was introduced or changed.
Yeah, literally false. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't even know what to say.
I don't know. Sciisms, if you want to come up, then I will gladly let you in to talk about this.
Come on, brother, get up here. Oh my god! I'm just like sitting here. I'm like, what? Like, bro's speaking a whole new language.
Yeah. Funny enough, in the Blind Watchmaker, I was reading parts of it yesterday. He talks about a lot of this kind of stuff. What this guy's talking about here sounds a lot like Evo-Devo, developmental evolution or whatever, which basically says, now mutations aren't the big thing. It's just changes that occur during embryological development. That's really what drives speciation, and natural selection wouldn't act very strongly on them because you're inside the mother being protected during that time. It's really interesting. I'm certain it's a combination of both things, but like we can see that changes in the gene expression in the embryo could lead to, like, for example, snakes have many more vertebra than their close relatives do. Well, we know that gene duplications that cause basically duplicated segments of the body occur. Like, we know that happens. So that could have happened in a snake, and it's funny because a lot of people would consider that kind of like a macro mutation, right? Although it wouldn't change what it is, quote unquote. But that could happen in the womb, and so you get a long lizard.